for coming. And thanks for bearing with the venue change and the confusion. 'Tis life, it happens. Really, really blessed to have this space that welcome to us that we can use tonight. Anybody needs to use the bathroom? Bathroom is through this door, through the kitchen. I haven't been there myself, but I'm told it's easy to find. So this event is brought to you by the Identity Movement and Cascadia Workshops. Really excited to do this. I've personally found so much reward from NVC in my life over the past year since it's come to me. I've been through a couple study groups, and now I'm actually leading some study groups, and the rewards are just so great, not just in the way that I interact with the people around me and in my life, but the way that I communicate with myself has, I think, been the most profound way that this has really touched my heart. The goal and mission behind the Identity Movement is to regenerate our community through skill building workshops, mutual aid, and local volunteer opportunities. But really, that really just scratches the surface. Really what we're trying to do is to inspire and empower those around us to look deep inside themselves, peel off all these layers of labels that get slapped onto us throughout our lives, and really discover not only our own identity, but our unlimited potential that lies within each one of us. So really, really excited to welcome Alan. I've had the pleasure of working with Alan for a little while now, and awesome guy right here. But really excited for tonight. Thank you for being here. If anyone's interested, we're going to be in the next month, probably next month, we're going to be starting our next round of study groups. If you're interested in being part of that, please talk to me afterwards, and I'd love to get your name and information down so that I can contact you as soon as we get the info for the next round. I think that's what I got. I do have a sign-up sheet for emails if you'd like to be in contact with future Identity Movement events, and this is also going to be linked to NVC Whatcom. So we are also building a community of like-minded individuals that we can practice these tools and share these rewards with each other and keep growing this community around us. Thank you.
Thanks, Kara.
Move it off to Ellen.
I'm going to mess up your cameras, Joshua, because I'm going to be moving around. Okay. Apologize ahead of time. So, I want to set the tone for our next hour and a half. Really informal, really relaxed. I just invite you to interrupt at any moment. And particularly, one thing that's really important to me in all my workshops is that you're taking responsibility for making sure your needs are met. So if you need to go use the bathroom, go use the bathroom. I could be mid-sentence and you stand up, or you go outside to take a call or whatever, and I'm just assuming that you're doing what you need to do to get your needs met. I don't typically structure breaks into my workshops. We have breaks organically when we need a break. So if you come on in, welcome. If you would like a break, if you think the group needs a break, just speak up. Come on in, you guys. See, this is informal and casual. I was just telling everybody.
We thought it was this other one, but we couldn't find parking.
You're in the right place.
Alan, I have a couple chairs in my car. Would you like me to go get them, or Josh, you want to get them? Is it locked?
No, it's not.
They're in the back.
Awesome. A team effort.
Do you think he needs a hand, or do you think he's
I think they're not heavy.
Yeah.
We brought some food. Can we eat food in here?
Yeah. It's somebody else's yoga space, so just make sure that you're, watching for spills and stuff like that.
Fun. We brought popcorn.
Yeah, clean up after yourself. The stuff we learned in kindergarten. I trust you to take care of it. So yeah, totally go for it.
And where you're comfortable.
Use that.
Do you want to come here for pillows to sit on?
Hey, welcome. Come on in. So who's totally brand new to this specific process called nonviolent communication? Barely even heard of it, but you're just here. You haven't read the book. It's just you're totally brand new. Okay, awesome. Come on, people.
There's a couple chairs coming.
Who's here who considers themselves a beginner? You checked it out a little bit, but consider yourself a beginner. Okay? This is subjective, right? This is just your own subjective self-assessment. Who considers themselves intermediate, say, in your practice of it? A few people. Awesome. Okay, Tori too. Who considers themselves advanced in NVC? Who's already teaching it? Is there anybody here already teaching it? I'm guessing there's no certified trainers here. I have trainers come to my workshop, so who in the room has had a negative experience with nonviolent communication? You can be totally honest. You too? Yeah. Yeah. I have people come to my workshops. It's almost like one of the things I think of myself that I specialize in, right? People who have negative experiences with it. And we'll look at that. We'll look at, you know, what that is and what's going on with that. Because for me, nonviolent communication is a tool. It's actually many tools. It's actually several toolboxes of tools. But as such, it can be used in a way that contributes, and that's the original intention of it. But it can also be used in ways that, if our intention isn't clear, our intention might be to get our way, or our intention might be to manipulate a specific outcome, and then it becomes a subtle form of manipulation, and it's actually not nonviolent communication at all at that point. But we can use words that sound like it, but then it wouldn't be NVC, so I'll get into that. I think this is going to be the group that's going to be here, so I'd like to do a little reading, just to kind of like set the tone. This is by one of my favorite poets. Her name is Mary Oliver, and this is called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Oh my goodness. That's beautiful.
Family of existence. What's our place? We all belong because we're here. So I already said interruptions are okay. I teach at 9-day intensives, and I don't cover the same material twice. I'm teaching like 12 or 14 hours a day for 9 days. So 90-minute intro, or however much time we have left, it's short, but it's also, I want to make it short and sweet, and I want to give you something really valuable, and at the same time I don't want to give too much of the theory and concepts. I want us to get us doing stuff. Is there anybody who does not have something to write on and with? That's fine. We may not need it. It just gives me a sense just to see, you know, what direction to go with things. So just a teeny bit about me. I grew up south of the border. I grew up in Mexico City, Mexico. My mom was born and raised there. My dad was from the States. I was born in the States, but grew up down there.
Hi.
Come on in. Welcome, welcome.
Those chairs out right there are available.
Oh, those chairs are available.
Yeah.
We might have the people on the floor scoot forward so we can put chairs behind you. Come on in. This direction. Right here. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to pause myself for a moment while we get settled.
Let's get that camera and do it.
In the mid-90s, I had a job working with high school students. And one of the groups that I was working with had a lot of conflict in it. And so I took a workshop on conflict mediation. I want to learn how to work with these teens. And at this workshop, I met my first mentor in this process, nonviolent communication. And at that point, we started inviting Marshall Rosenberg, the guy who created it, to the Seattle area about twice a year. So that's when I started studying this, was 1995, with the guy who created it. Welcome, come on in. So I've been studying this for about 23 years. And some people are like, what? You look too young. So I'm just going to tell you I'm 47. So I started in my 20s. And I've been a certified trainer for about 15 years. So that's just a little bit of my background in this material. I want to give a little context. I had a man reach out to me who he teaches at an MBA program at a local university. He has an award-winning blog, and he was looking for a business partner. Somebody put us in touch, and I talked to him on the phone. I said, I'm not your guy, but if you want to meet, we can still meet. So he came out to my office. I live in Kendall, about 40 minutes out from here. And we had a great conversation, and at the end of it, he says, Alan, something I want to share with you. And he said, I sold about $30 to $40 million worth of consulting based on this one diagram. Do you want to see it? And I was like, yeah, I want to see it. So then he showed me the diagram. And it's what I'm going to draw for you on the board in a second. And after showing me the diagram, he said, you can share this with anyone you want. You can do anything you want with this. So I get to share it with you. What I'm going to share with you is not nonviolent communication, but it does create some context for me. It gives me a sense of, in a way, why this work can be so powerful and so useful, both from a personal level and as well as if we want to create positive change in the world, how it can also contribute to that. So if I want to get, so just remember, this is not nonviolent communication, but it does set some context and it's totally consistent with it. So if I want to get results of any kind, I need to take action. He drew this as a pyramid, by the way, so that's the visual part thing. Maybe I'll add after the words. I've tried getting results just sitting around on the couch. That has never happened for me. Didn't work. In order to know where to take action, I need to know what the opportunities are. What are the doorways, right, through which I can then take action, and then I'll get some kind of results. In order to really know what opportunities are viable and separate the ones that are viable from the ones that are not, I need to have a clear sense of what the possibilities are. And the base, the foundation of this pyramid is the relationship. Call it an Aztec pyramid. That's the foundation. My friend and colleague over here, Joshua, if he and I have a not so great relationship, then we're not going to have the conversations that are going to surface the possibilities. We're not going to go there. We're not going to take the time. There isn't going to be the trust. But if he and I have a relationship where we're willing to have those conversations and explore the possibilities, then there's every possibility that we'll find viable opportunities where we can take action and then we'll get the results. But if the relationships are shitty, it's not going to work. Is anybody here offended by me swearing? I'll tone it down. I'm pretty potty mouth, and I like to be authentic and genuine. But a couple times I've had people who are uncomfortable, and so I can rein myself in a little bit there. So yeah, if the relationships are shitty, the whole thing doesn't work. Okay. Any questions about this at this moment? Yeah.
Who's the author or the creator of that?
I don't know if he created it. He said he sold $30 to $40 million worth of consulting based on this diagram. I don't know if he created it, but his name's Mike Cook, and you can look him up. He's local, somewhere in the Bo Edison area, I think, is where he is. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Sometimes relationships can be the result.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
True.
then I'm trying to grasp the concept and the tool.
Do you have a specific situation?
Father and daughter relationship, Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to understand
Yeah.
how to work from there.
I was contacted by a father and daughter who, the father contacted me first, and then the daughter and I were in touch, and they were trying to decide whether or not to work with me so that we could help them understand each other more and hopefully become closer. And it never happened because the daughter was like, no, not ready, no, don't feel safe. So the relationship was that degraded that we didn't take further steps. But let's hold this loosely, just as a concept. You know, sometimes for me to improve a relationship, I have to improve the relationship with myself. Because if I'm racked with shame or guilt or something that I have to work on inside me, if I have that going on, I'm not as present to how I show up in the relationship. And it can further get in the way of the relationship. I had two people very, very close to me, one of whom demanded an apology from the other. And the other wanted so much to offer that apology, but she had so much guilt about the things that had happened that the apology was never forthcoming. She had to work through all these layers first before she could get there. So that's just another angle on it. Yeah.
Thanks.
But I'm happy to explore it more with you. Yeah. So, were there other questions or anything at this point? I'm going to start moving a little faster because I know we don't have a lot of time. So, nonviolent communication, also known as NVC. I'm not a huge fan of the name. Just want to be upfront about that. Yeah.
Isn't it also known as compassionate communication?
Yes, and it's also known as empathic communication, and it's also known as empowered communication, and it's also known as life-connected, life-serving communication, which is one of my favorite names actually, but it's a little long. It's also known as giraffe language because we have these dangerous metaphors of the giraffe and the jackal. So hopefully we'll bring those metaphors out a little bit. But let me start here where this name comes from. But yeah, there are a lot of names for it. And the reason that Marshall Rosenberg, who was the person I studied with the most, the reason that he named this nonviolent communication is because he wanted to align himself with Mahatma Gandhi's social movement of nonviolence. Increasingly, I think people aren't connected with what the nonviolence movement was about. And there are a lot of critiques of what happened afterwards and how it didn't keep going as a social movement. But his remarkable achievement was he kicked out a colonial power without a war. And that's pretty remarkable. Nobody else had ever done that before. But they had two words in Hindi that they used to describe their movement that didn't have a direct translation into English. So one of those words was satyagraha, and the other word was ahimsa. No translation, no direct translation. So satyagraha is a little bit like soul force or soul truth or the power of the truth. And ahimsa is a little bit along the lines of I am not your enemy or harmlessness toward all beings. It's a little bit akin to the Buddhist concept of loving kindness. So we took these two concepts, the power of the truth and loving kindness. In English, we called it nonviolence. Same in Spanish. Right? It just got translated as nonviolence. So, but that's really where it comes from. And my issue with it is it doesn't tell you what it is, it tells you what it's not. I saw somebody at a store once looking at Marshall Rosenberg's book titled Nonviolent Communication, and they were like, this must be for violent people, so it's not for me. Yeah, and that's really not what it is at all.
Right.
So we do have these other names: compassionate communication, empathic communication, because empathy is so much a part of it. How we show up, how we're present, how we listen to others. One of the workshops I've taught once was titled How to Speak So Others Will Listen, and Listen So Others Will Speak. Parents of teenagers love that title, as you can imagine. So, and then we have these metaphors of the giraffe and the jackal. One of the things that the giraffe and the jackal enable me to do is they enable me to stand up in front of a group of people and play with puppets. But that's not really the purpose of it. And the jackal gets away with saying stuff I might not get away with saying, in some contexts. But really the idea behind these metaphors is that, for example, the giraffe is one of the land animals with the largest heart. And it's tall enough that it has this perspective that anytime we meet our needs at the expense of somebody else's needs, in the long run, our needs will not be met. Like anytime I set up a win-lose outcome, even if I win, in the long run I lose. Because we're all interdependent. We're all interrelated. It's, you reap what you sow. It's the law of cause and effect. For me, karma is not an esoteric term. For me, karma is the law of cause and effect. The CIA has a name for it. They call it blowback. It's the same thing. When I meet my needs at the expense of your needs, in the long run, my needs are probably going to matter less to you. So when people have a conflict, oftentimes we think about compromise. And I hear this a lot in the political system, like they reached a compromise or they failed to reach a compromise, and you hear it with parents and children, like, well, why don't you?
Getting less than what you originally wanted.
Getting less than what you originally wanted. Yeah. Both people give in a little bit, or they give up something important to meet in the middle.
Shrinking.
Shrinking. Yeah.
Like both people's desires are smaller.
Yeah.
Like what they're able to
Yeah.
achieve.
Yeah, and there's like a little bit of collapsing of the heart a little bit.
Immunocompromise.
What's that?
Immunocompromise.
Say it again?
Immunocompromise.
Immunocompromise. Oh, when
like
you think of compromise, yeah, like a suppressed immune system. Yeah, right. It has that little meaning. Interesting.
Everyone loses a little to win a little.
Everyone loses a little to win a little. So, in nonviolent communication, we don't aim for compromise. If that's as far as you can get in a conflict, great. Yeah, no problem. But the bar that we set is a true win-win. Not a win-lose, not a we both gave in a little bit, but a true win-win. I'm gonna hopefully tonight I'll be able to show you some of how that works. I'm doing a workshop on June 30th. It's a Saturday, and it's gonna be a 6-hour workshop. We'll do 3 hours before lunch, 3 hours after lunch, and it'll be on nonviolent communication, specifically in relationship. And when I do work with couples, a lot of what we focus on is how to sustain a difficult conversation, how to get to the other side of it, to get to that win-win.
Where was that going to be at?
We don't have a venue yet. We're working on that.
We're working on it.
There's a place to sign up already, and then like online, and then we'd send you an email saying, oh, this is the venue, but probably in Bellingham somewhere.
Is there a link to that? We're online. Do we
Yeah,
find the
I'll put the link on here before, and there's flyers up here for it
info?
actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we're aiming for a win-win. Now the purpose of nonviolent communication is to create the quality of connection out of which we enjoy contributing to one another's well-being. This super simple concept, quality of connection, is really important, and I like to harp on it because it's so key. Who here has had a dinner guest? And that dinner guest really enjoyed what you made for them? Yeah? How did that feel to you? Good. Yeah, super satisfying, right? There's that natural joy of giving that happens, right? Now imagine that dinner guest threatens you to feed them. What happens to that natural generosity?
Goes away.
Yeah. Or they guilt trip you into feeding them. Lynn, if you really cared about me, you'd make me dinner tonight.
Okay.
Pack your bags. We're going on a guilt trip. So if they threaten you to do it, or they try to guilt you into doing it, or they pressure you, welcome Shannon, come on in, find a place to sit. Then it doesn't work. So it turns out that this natural joy of giving, this natural generosity, is something that human beings love. We just totally get off on. But it only works when we have choice. As soon as we feel manipulated, pushed, coerced, forced, tricked into it, just anything like that, forget it. I don't want to do it. It's no fun anymore. So when the quality of connection is high, we naturally fall into this spontaneous generosity. That's the purpose of this, is to create the high quality of connection out of which we spontaneously want to contribute to one another's well-being. I mentioned Marshall Rosenberg. Marshall traveled the world something like 45 years, training people, mediating conflicts. And he said that in every culture, he saw people playing one of two games. I think we're logisticizing in the background how to let somebody else in. That's got magnets in the middle. There you go. Come on in. So Marshall Rosenberg, who traveled the world 45 years, training people, mediating conflicts, he said in every culture people are playing one of two games. One of those games is called Who's Right and Who's Wrong. And the other game is called How Can I Make Life More Wonderful? That's the game we're playing when we're in the mindset of nonviolent communication. So think about when you've been super disconnected from somebody. Like just really disconnected. The slightest thing they do is really annoying, isn't it? Yeah, like the way they walk, the way they dress, the way they breathe, the way they blow their nose. It's just like it's highly irritating. It's like, ah. When the quality of connection is low, forget it. You know, it's just when the quality of connection is really high, imagine somebody that you feel very connected to, and imagine they like accidentally dent your car, or they spill a pot of coffee in the middle of your living room. What's your response? Yeah, you're like the most understanding person in the universe, right? Yeah. So that's what. So Marshall was a student of Carl Rogers, a famous psychologist. And one of Carl Rogers' concerns at the time was, how come authentic human connection can be so healing? So what Marshall decided to do was to distill the essential elements in language that contribute to this high quality of connection. So that's where nonviolent communication comes from. Now there's a speaking side and a listening side. Any communication process has speaking and listening, or giving and receiving. In NVC, we call them honesty and empathy. On the speaking side, on the honesty side, the purpose of NVC is, how do I speak my truth? How do I share my perspective, what's true and real for me, in a way that's most likely to be received with understanding by the other person? In a way that's most likely to elicit a compassionate response. And also that's most likely to result in my needs being met, in a way that's in harmony with other people's needs. That's on the speaking side. On the listening side, how can I be in the face of blame, judgment, criticism, verbal attack? Has anybody ever had that experience? you're in the face of judgment, criticism, blame, some kind of verbal attack. How can I be in the face of that, and instead of hearing judgment, blame, criticism, I'm able to tune into what's important to this other person at the level of their values or their needs, like what's in their heart, so that then I'm not getting as defensive. I'm able to stand in a more compassionate place, and I'm much more likely to diffuse the situation or turn it around somehow. So that's on the listening side, and these two parts work together. If we had a lot more space and some more time, I'd love to do like some movement exercises based in Aikido, which is a martial art of peace, that help ground this in your body. We have a trainer coming from Poland in February who does a lot of nonviolent communication in a way that's embodied, and I'm going to encourage her to do a lot of that when she comes. So that's in February. Her name's Aga. She's coming from Poland. So it's exciting to have this group with Joshua and Kara and other people, because we're putting on more of these things for the community. We think it's one of the things the world needs. And we get to invite awesome trainers from other places too, so that's kind of fun. Okay. Well, let's talk briefly about the thinking and language that blocks connection. Because I want us to be really clear. What's the thinking and language that gets in the way of the quality of connection we're looking for? Are there any questions so far? Anything at all? The whole workshop could turn on a dime. Like, it really could. We can do different kinds of exercises and different things. But I'm going to keep us moving. This goes until 7, right? Ooh, it's already 6. So, I'm gonna do this kind of quickly. I have a video online that covers this in about half an hour. I'm not gonna take that long. Denial of responsibility. These are diagnoses. Denial of responsibility. Demands for concept of deserve. And coercion, also known as jackal motivations. Diagnoses, I'm not talking about valid medical diagnoses. I'm talking about pigeonholing other people, putting people in a box. You are. I was driving here and somebody cut me off on the road and I rolled my window down and I gave him the finger and I yelled, "You asshole." And the theory behind that is that the person is then going to start reflecting on their own driving, and they're going to start caring about my needs for consideration and safety on the road. Now, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who had a PhD in clinical psychology, if somebody cut him off on the road, he'd roll his window down, give him the finger, and yell, "You psychopath!" In other words, there's such a thing as professional jackal. Like all levels here. Jackal is my shorthand for life disconnected, life alienating thinking and language. We'll just call it jackal. It's a linguistic shortcut. Going back to these dangerous metaphors. One of the reasons they're dangerous is we can start thinking that there are people who are jackals and there are people who are giraffes. And then we're right back in this type of thinking that has rigid concepts of good, bad, right, wrong, and who is what. And then we know who deserves to be punished or rewarded. So we want to use these metaphors kind of lightly. So obviously not a true story. Well, I hope it was obvious. Not a true story. But it's an example. Now, diagnosing can look a lot of other ways. It's not just judging and pigeonholing, but also any time that I believe my story about what's going on inside somebody else. So like, I'm talking to someone and I can say, "Oh, I can see you're very angry about that." That's a diagnosis. Because I'm interpreting that they're angry. They might say, "I'm not angry, I'm just a little frustrated." They get to be the final authority on what's happening inside them. Not me believing my story about what's going on in them. Like, for example, Lisa, the other day when you yelled at me for no reason whatsoever. Which didn't happen. But where's the diagnosis? When you yelled at me for no reason whatsoever, what's the diagnosis there?
No reason.
Yeah. Like, I'm the authority on what's going on inside her. That's a diagnosis. Believing my story about what's happening inside you. It's disconnecting. This is just the type of thinking and language that's going to get in the way of the type of connection we're looking for. Denial of responsibility can look tons of ways. Let's pull out a jackal puppet to play. If the puppets offend you, I've had a couple people over the years didn't like puppets. They can put them away. I had an engineer at the Public Utility District. I was doing the training for the whole staff at Public Utility District. One of the engineers was really offended. "I didn't come here to be treated like a 4-year-old in a Punch and Judy show." He was really upset. And I'm going to show you later how we have 4 options how to receive any message. And that's how I listened to him when he was really upset at this training. That'll be fun to go into that. So, denial of responsibility. This is a school teacher. I have to give you grades. It's school policy. instead of, I choose to give you grades because I'm choosing to keep my job. That's more honest. Or, I choose to give you grades, and this is the value that I see in grades. Rather than, I have to, it's school policy. That's a cop-out. Just saying. Or, policeman, I have to give you a ticket, it's the law. As opposed to, I'm choosing to give you a ticket because I have a contract with my employer and I'm choosing to be of integrity with this contract, and so I'm choosing to give you a ticket. Or I caught you doing 80 and a 20 and I value safety, so I'm choosing to give you a ticket. Here's another one. It hurts, Mommy, when you don't make your bed. Instead of, right, it hurts me. Right, there's the guilt trip again. So rather than, this is why I value you making your bed. This is why it's important to Mommy that you make your bed. Or there's certain things I want you to learn when you're living with other people, and making your bed is part of that. So owning it. Adolf Eichmann, infamous member of the Nazi Party, before his tribunal in Jerusalem was asked, was it hard for you to send tens of thousands of people to their death? And he said, no, it was actually easy. Our language made it easy. And we even had a name for that language. We called it Amtssprache, which my German pronunciation is horrible, but roughly translated means bureaucratese, office speak, right? I have to, it's superior's orders. That's where the Geneva Conventions came in. So denial of responsibility can look a lot of ways, but it blocks connection. Demands are sort of like requests. Let me ask you this. I grew up in a very loving and very confused household about how we motivate each other, and there was this unspoken definition of love, and I just want to run it by you, see if this is familiar to you. If you love me, you would give me what I want when I'm wanting it, and you would know how I want it and when I want it. Because if I have to ask, oh, it's not the same. Anyone recognize that? Yeah. Yeah. So the yardstick for how much other people care for you is like how psychic they are. Right? Like you would just know magically that I want a glass of water right now, and if you don't guess that, then that means you don't care about me. So in nonviolent communication, we take responsibility for what we're wanting by making a clear request. But in a request, in a nonviolent communication request, your needs matter to me too. In other words, I'm able to hear a no with as much love as a yes. Or we'll find another way. In a demand, there's a hidden threat that if you don't do as I've asked, you're going to get punished somehow, you're going to pay for it somehow. How do you know if what I've asked of you is a request or demand?
How it feels?
How it feels, maybe?
You're okay with a no.
That's the answer I would go with. Thank you.
Is what?
Whether I'm okay with a no.
Ah.
Because the other person might be interpreting, and how they feel comes from, the meaning that they're giving to the, like, I could say, Joshua, pretty please, can you go get me a glass of water? Aww, you're such a good friend. And then he might say something like, well, I'm in this workshop, I'm really focused. Could you ask somebody else, or would you get your own? And I'm like, fine, and I take the easel and I throw it. And even though I said pretty please, his no wasn't okay. So that it would be a demand. So if I experience demands from somebody over time, it tells me my needs don't matter. They just want it their way. It's like my way or the highway. So that's going to get in the way of the quality of connection we're looking for, where we have this natural generosity that we were talking about earlier. Deserve is also known as justification of reward and punishment.
I just had a little nuance on demands.
Please.
Differentiating demands from boundaries.
Say it again.
Differentiating demands from boundaries.
Yes.
So I think a lot
Yeah.
with parenting, it's like, no, you can't go out on the road. There's no other option for you.
Right.
This is not a negotiation.
Totally.
It's not a request. It's like the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
How is that?
Thank you. That falls in a special category of things that we usually explore more in like a more advanced workshop. And it's I want to go there now because you brought it up. Protective use of force, as opposed to punitive use of force. So if I'm on the street with my 2-year-old, my 2-year-old starts running out on the street, forget it, I'm not gonna have a dialogue. You know, when I see you run in the street, I feel concerned. Too late.
Done that.
You lost your child, man. Yeah, so I'm gonna use my strength, I'm gonna use my force against their will in order to protect life. Now, if I was coming from a punitive mindset, it would be like, you stupid little boy, now daddy has to spank you so you learn about cars. That would be punitive. Protective use of force can be just as passionate. So nonviolent communication is not about being nice, just to be clear. It's not about being nice, especially if nice is not authentic. It's about being real. How can I be real in a way that's also human, right, and compassionate? So in that case, it could be like, oh my gosh, daddy's really scared because he really wants you to be safe. But it's protective use of force. So anytime any unilateral action can be construed as protective use of force. As long as the other person's needs do matter to me, you know, as much as my own needs, I can still exert unilateral action. If I've exhausted every other possibility, then I could go there.
And there's also a sense of like a moral like foundation that you're coming from as well.
Well, a lot of people who express demands might think they're coming from a moral foundation too, so that one gets a little dicey. Because it's subjective, right? My moral foundation. Like I'm coming.
Well, you're like protect life. That's like.
Yeah.
Because you value life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So protective use of force, yeah, is specifically protecting life. Whereas punitive use of force is, you know, it's like you can check the boxes, right, on the punitive. There's also a difference between insisting and demanding. And it's also known as dogging for our needs. Anybody here have a dog? A few people have dogs. So like I'm sitting in my computer and I'm busy and my dog comes up and kind of nudges me with their nose. And I look down, I'm like, oh, I know you need a walk. I'm really focused on this. I'm almost done. Got a deadline. I'm just super focused. My dog's looking at me with like total understanding. Like, gets it? And then I go back to work and then 2 seconds later, they're nudging me with done unto them. They're redeemed through the violence. It's why we call our prisons penitentiaries. Because we send people there to do penance. The theory of it is the more I think I'm a piece of shit, the better I'll come out in the end. It just doesn't work that way. I wouldn't have a problem if it worked, but it doesn't seem to work. So, if you want to see an awesome example of the myth of redemptive violence, check out children's cartoons. There are good guys and there are bad guys, and the bad guys are humiliated, pulverized, excluded, ostracized, and the good guys are celebrated, loved, accepted, you know, right at the climax of the show. And lastly, life-alienated motivations, also known as coercion. I'll make a list here real quick. Fear, guilt, shame, duty and obligation, to get a reward, to avoid punishment, out of shoulds or have tos. Just gonna jackal motivations. That's this coercion. If there's one thing you get out of this whole time this evening, it's probably the following phrase. And if you can tattoo it on the inside of your eyelids, I would totally do that. The energy with which we do anything for each other is just as important as the action itself. I'll repeat as many times as you need for those people taking notes. The energy with which we do anything for each other is just as important as the action itself. If we do anything for each other out of any one of these motivations, the relationship's going to suffer. if I find that you're motivating me through fear, guilt, shame, eventually I'm going to resent it. It's just natural. If you associate me over time, over years, with these energies, chances are in the long run, my needs are going to matter less to you. So I have an understanding in my household that we don't do anything for each other out of these energies. With the mother of my children, we have this total understanding that we don't want, please don't do anything for me if it's coming from these energies. So if I'm doing the dishes and resenting her out of the fact that I'm doing the dishes, she'd rather I not do the dishes. Because what's more important, the dishes or the relationship? If she's vacuuming and resenting me out of the fact that she's vacuuming, I'd rather that she not vacuum. Because what's more important, the vacuuming or the relationship? Now, the dishes still get done, the vacuuming still happens, but we want to come to it because we're connected to how it serves life. In NVC, we use a language of universal human needs around that. So if I'm doing the dishes with this energy of like, I have to do the dishes, and if I don't do them, nobody else will do them, and man, I hate doing dishes, and I just have to, so I'm just going to do them. I'm resenting the task. I'm creating a lot of tension in my mind-body structure. I'm probably resenting other people. And that's completely different from doing the dishes out of, welcome, come on in. Really different from doing the dishes out of feeling connected with my values and my needs. So, because I value health and hygiene, or because I value order and cleanliness. If I'm connected to my values and my needs, how doing the dishes contributes to that, it's a totally different energy for doing the dishes. So stuff still gets done, we just back off if we notice we're coming from these energies. Yeah?
So, how does that correlate with duty? Because, I mean, you have to or clean the carpet, or do you vacuum, or...
Oh, do you?
Yes.
I have a different version of reality. My version of reality says that you get to choose. I was sitting with a friend in his house having that exact conversation, right? Because we're in this kitchen, and he goes, Alan, there's some things you just have to do. And I said, give me an example. And he says, I have to do the dishes, because there was a stack of dirty dishes behind me. And I said, no, you don't. Throw them out and buy new ones. Or eat off of dirty plates. Or go out and buy some paper plates. But see, the difference isn't that the dishes get done or not. The difference is what's the energy I'm coming from when I choose to engage with the dishes. So if we were like housemates or something, and I'm doing the dishes, and I'm starting to hate you, you'd probably prefer dirty dishes.
No, I get that.
Okay.
So, like, fear, guilt, shame, those are all negative emotions. I'm just wondering, how do you view you gotta pay your rent and take out the garbage?
Yeah. I try to connect with
I
try to connect with the needs of how those things contribute. How do those things serve, or how do they align with my values? So instead of I have to take the trash out, I get to take the trash out. I don't want that stinky stuff sitting in my house. So can I connect with how it contributes to life to do those things? Because if I'm living a story that I have to, it's no fun anymore. Yeah. Like a surefire recipe for me not to do something is to tell myself I should. Yeah, I've tried to teach my kids about the SH word. Should. Yeah, and it's so painful when I see people shoulding on themselves. It's rough. It's rough because life becomes a drag. Tom.
Freud calls it the tyranny of the should.
The tyranny of the should. Yeah, it's a big tyranny. So going back to demands, like when somebody expresses a demand toward me, or if I'm experiencing a demand around a specific task, so let's say somebody expresses a demand to me. The old paradigm is I only had two choices. I either submit or I rebel. Nonviolent communication gives me a third path, which is connection. And then we figure out the strategy after we understand each other. So I'll keep going with that. How are you feeling about my answer?
I like it. I like it. It's what did you say? Getting in touch with
The needs or the values. Yeah, and I'm using needs in a very specific way here. We're talking about universal human needs. So the conditions necessary for life to thrive for any human being. Regardless of culture, geographic location, all human beings have these core human motivators. Beyond survival needs, so including survival needs, air, food, water, but also love, trust, acceptance, creative expression, choice for how I want to live my life. These are all, they're energies that want to flow, not holes that want to be filled. That's why the word need is tricky, because it implies a sense of lack. But we're talking about energies that want to flow. They're core human motivators. Yeah.
Could it also be like the why?
Yes.
It's like the purpose, you know, like you go to work and you have to, but then it's actually, no, you want, like, it's the why.
Yeah.
Why do you go to work? Because it gives me the money to, you know. It's
Big time.
It's kind of another word maybe that's kind of interconnected with
I love it. I love it. And but the cool thing though is that why doesn't always get me to something universal, but if I keep asking it, it could. So like I might be like, Tori, I need the window open. She's like, but why? And I'm like, well, because it's stuffy in here and I need some fresh air. She's like, yeah, but so then what would that give you? It's another variation of why, right? We're peeling the layers of the onion, going deeper. And then I might say, well, because if I had fresh air, I'd feel more comfortable. And she keeps going, well, then if you were more comfortable, then what? What would that give you? So then if I'm more comfortable, then I'm more present with the people in my workshop. Well, if you were more present, then what would you have? Well, then I'd have more reassurance that I'm being of service. Yeah, but why? Why would you want to be of service? Or what? Then what do you have? She's a curious person. I love that quality. So then I might say, well, because if I'm being of service, then I'm more certain that I'm walking my life purpose. So we went from the window to life purpose in about 7 steps. But yeah, you can definitely, why is one of those questions that helps you peel the layers of the onion for sure. Until you get to something that's truly universal. If you can distill any conflict to the universal human needs, suddenly both people are seeing each other's humanity. It's much easier to create the quality of connection we're looking for and to resolve conflicts and prevent conflicts when we're connecting with each other in that way. Any other questions so far?
You mentioned someone's name about, like, you quoted it, was it Will something?
Oh, Walter Wink.
Walter Wink.
Walter Wink, yeah. He's the one who talks about the myth of redemptive violence. Yeah. Any other questions or just anything at all before I just keep moving?
You talk about universal human needs. Do you have like a list that you think about of here's what everybody needs?
Yeah. I have a handout, but I didn't bring a handout tonight. But I do have a list. In fact, it's in this book. Kara's gonna. Will you hold up the cover of the book just so people can see the?
Yes, I have both.
Oh, that's the companion workbook. So anyway, the book that Marshall Rosenberg wrote has a list of universal human needs, and I have handouts, and you can find them online too.
And I have a pretty extensive list that if anyone ends up wanting to like take a picture of it or something,
I think on the website there's
there's one on the website.
Yeah, you can.
This one's even a little bit more expensive.
Pass it around.
Yeah.
What, aren't you helping develop an app or something like that with?
I have a client who's creating an app for teachers, parents, and school children in order to help school children deal with violence in the schools, but particularly bullying, and how to express if something's not working for them in a way that's going to be easier for others to hear. And so I had to develop like a really comprehensive list of feelings and needs for this client, because the lists that are in books and on people's websites and different places are all copyrighted, and they needed something that hadn't yet been copyrighted. So I took all the existing lists and I merged them. That didn't exist before.
Can you send that to me?
And then I added more. Somebody else owns the copyright now. And my client, I had to sign that.
Isn't there some slang that you
and I found some feelings words on the Urban Dictionary, like feeling donk. Feeling wonderful. So we have about a half hour left. So I'm just going to keep moving because we haven't even actually gotten into NVC. And I promised you that I would tell you about 4 options for how to hear any message. And I wanna do that real quick. I've got some high-tech devices here to demonstrate. Really, like, it's hard to find. So in order to demonstrate the 4 options, and I'll just tell you what the 4 are just briefly, and then demonstrate them. So this is that jackal consciousness, right? This is the metaphor for that consciousness that judges others, that puts people in a box, that avoids responsibility, that blames. And within that consciousness, I can direct my attention outward toward others, or I can direct it inward toward myself. So those are 2 options. And this is the consciousness that's more about being truthful and compassionate, taking responsibility for what I'm feeling and what I'm wanting. And from this consciousness, I can also direct my attention outward toward somebody else or inward toward myself. So those are the 4 options. Now in order to demonstrate it, I'd like somebody to say something that would hurt my feelings.
That's a terrible shirt.
Awesome. What's your name?
Brendan's Roar.
Roar?
Yeah. I actually like your shirt.
The thing is, I think it's about my shirt. Make it more personal. You can do better than that.
Oh, that's not so personal. I was gonna say, when you read the word donk in the dictionary, I think you actually pronounced it wrong. It's dank.
Dank?
Yeah, that's not personal, sorry.
Yeah, it's Zach, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, like, insult me.
You suck.
Thank you. So I'm gonna have you say it a few times, just so I can demonstrate each option. Was that okay with you? Okay. So with the jackal ears outward, I'm gonna judge her back. Go ahead.
You suck.
Oh yeah, screw you. You suck worse than I do. So like that. We're just gonna get into this kind of like, butting heads but the jackal ears outward are almost like an armor or a shield, right? Like, I'm not going to let your judgment penetrate. Yes, I'm going to send you 10 more judgments, like that. Like, you just kind of escalate. So now I'm going to demonstrate with these inward toward myself. One more time.
You suck.
Oh, shoot, I probably do suck. Right? Now I'm going to internalize her judgment and probably feel terrible about myself. Yeah. So with these ears facing inward, I'm guaranteed to experience some form of shame or guilt or depression. And with these ears facing out, I'm almost guaranteed to experience some form of anger or rage. And some of us are earbidextrous. All day. You suck, I suck, everybody sucks, especially me. Yeah, it's really just not very fun world. And if we were doing a longer class, I do a multi-session, like a skill building intensive. I'm going to do another one in the spring. And one of the things that we do in between sessions is I give people stuff to practice, and then we come back and we debrief. You know, how did that go, and how was that? And one of the very first things we practice is just going out and noticing where your consciousness is during the day, just throughout your day, and then we come back and we debrief. You know, where that was at. So those are 2 of the 4 options. So now the giraffe ears facing inward. So first I'm going to connect with my heart. So one more time.
You suck.
So when I get to connect with what's going on in here, so I'm like, ouch. Okay. Feeling some sadness because I really have a need for acceptance. Notice how different that is from judging her back or judging myself. It's just like, oh, what was arising in me was acceptance, and maybe it was sadness. Or maybe what's arising in me is I want to be seen differently. Like I have a need for understanding, and what's arising is irritation. It could be that. That's still different from judging her or judging myself. It's just like, oh, what's alive for me? Understanding, and I feel a little irritated. So again, I don't have to escalate it. So now one more time.
You suck.
Now I get to connect with what's in her heart. Now it might be that whatever just happened, maybe it's her needs for consideration weren't met, and she's feeling a lot of disappointment. It could be that. Now, if I believe my story and I say, this is what's happening for you, now I'm falling into diagnosing. So it's an empathic guess. It's like, I wonder if this is what's going on for her. Notice that I haven't even said anything to her. It's just where my attention goes. My attention can go to like, what a bitch she is. Or it can be like, man, I do really suck. Or my attention can go to what's happening in my heart. Like sadness, wanting acceptance. Or it could be, I wonder if she has a need for consideration. Or maybe she's wanting to be seen for what she has to contribute in this moment. And I can check it out with her. So those are the 4 options for how to hear any message. And of these 4 options, I can keep them to myself in silence, or I can express them out loud. So that gives us 8 possibilities. Yeah?
Could you actually give the example of what you would say back to her on that last option?
Sure. And I'm gonna, the most important part of what I'm gonna say to her is at the very end, it's called a question mark. I'm gonna ask it as a question. Are you feeling a lot of disappointment because you would have liked more consideration in our other interaction? Like that. Yeah. And then she gets to check whether it's a yes or a no for her. And your guess doesn't need to be entirely accurate. The other person will correct you. I'm demonstrating that I care and that I'm trying to get it. That's the important part.
I don't know where this falls into place, but there was like I'm sensing it's this because of this, and even if it is an empathic guess, there's kind of a, like I felt with folks that use this kind of similar formula that like, I have to respond yes or no, but when maybe some parts were yes and some parts were no, to like a reflection like that. So I wonder how like, moving forward with different formats of questions.
That happens all the time. Oh, okay. So how to move forward with different formats of questions?
Yeah, so that it's not, because like maybe there was like a certain component of your reflection that was true, and a certain part that maybe wasn't true, and then how does that leave space for her to kind of explore that if you're like, have giraffe, like compassion giraffe ears.
Yeah, this happens all the time in a very close relationship that I have where I'll give a reflection and the other person's like, And one thing that's going to really help for quality of connection is slowing down. Especially if you're doing the listening side. And so she's going inside and I'm just giving her space. And she's like, yeah, kind of. It's a little bit more like this. So then she shares back, like it's a little bit more like this. So there's a back and forth that happens that allows us to kind of to hear each other and connect with each other. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, with that particular personality that's like reflective and that's in a mode to be like, oh, I heard that you're, because like you can give the giraffe ears and someone can still go back at you with jackal.
Yeah. Yeah, we have no control over what ears the other person's going to be wearing. So
What if they didn't want to give you anything back?
I could say I love your shirt, and the person could get offended. Really. What if they don't give me anything back?
Yeah.
I still have 4 options for how to hear that message. I can judge them for not giving me anything back, make them wrong about it, just silently. Just I can just be like this, but I'm like judging you. Or I can judge myself about it, like, gee, maybe I said it wrong, or gee, like, maybe they don't like me because I'm such a bad person, and and I'm just making up this story. And I have the other 2 options, like if I'm tuning inside, feeling a little uncomfortable because I'm wanting more connection here. That might be what's happening for me. There's a difference between intellectually figuring out what's happening inside you versus making direct contact. And that's one of the things that's part of the practice, is like contacting feelings and needs rather than figuring out feelings and needs. And again, I can tune in just in silence, or I can say it out loud, but just like, I'm wondering, and so in silence I might say something like, I wonder if this person's feeling kind of guarded because they're needing more trust and safety before they open up to me. Again, it's a wondering so that I'm not diagnosing. It's where my attention goes that's the important part, because the words that follow are going to be poles apart if I'm in one mindset versus the other. Yeah.
So of your 2 options with the giraffe, how do you just in the moment decide which giraffe version you're going to do? Or is it sort of happening simultaneously and you're sensing from the other person if they're even open to you reflecting back?
All of it, all of the above. Usually it happens when I'm connected with myself it just becomes clear which way to go. And with practice, it becomes more clear. So for example, if something's going on for you, and I notice that I can't give you empathy, I can't be present for you really in an empathic way, it means that I need empathy. If I can't be present and hear you out, it's because I have something going on for me that needs to be heard. And I'm wondering if that addresses
that
partially.
That person may not be the person to give you the empathy that you need.
Correct, and perhaps not in that moment. Empathy is a universal human need. We all want to be understood and gotten. Empathy from a specific person is not a universal human need.
Okay.
That becomes a strategy.
Okay.
And that's one of the distinctions I was hoping to talk about tonight. Let me draw something for you real quick that goes also partially toward answering your question. So this is called the NVC Tree of Life. And let's say that this is ground level. And up here is honesty, also known as authentic self-expression. And over here, this side is empathy, which actually most of the times happens in silence, but occasionally we use words to demonstrate that we're understanding. We'll reflect back what we're hearing. So sometimes that happens out loud. And down here, this third area is self-connection. This is home. So I might express myself, but then I come back home. And then I might choose to listen, but then I come back home. I'm always connected to myself, and this is a place of choice. It's a place of me being in my own power. And from there is where I decide whether I choose to express myself, whether I choose to offer empathy, whether I even want to offer empathy. I was at an event several years ago. There were it was a panel. I was a member of a panel, and there were a few hundred people, and the event ended, and somebody came up to me right at the end of the event, and they were about this far from my face, doing what most of us would call yelling, telling me why my values were what was destroying the world. And the level of what most of us would call aggression that was coming at me was such that there was an immediate reaction inside me, and what I wanted to do was punch this person in the face. And when I noticed that in myself, to me, I had been doing this work long enough that I realized that anytime I want to lash out at somebody, it's because I'm hurting. That's what we do. When we're hurting, we either lash out or we withdraw. Right? There's that saying, hurt people hurt people. So I've gotten to the point where most of what other people say to me, I can hear as either a please or a thank you. But at that moment, noticing that I wanted to punch this guy, I was like, whoa, something's going on inside me. So I turned my attention inward. I went here. And I realized, man, I feel a lot of disappointment because I value a different way of interacting with people. And I'm feeling kind of irritated because I'm really wanting to be seen differently. I'm wanting some understanding. That happened in about 2 seconds, and then I was back, and I was able to go to empathy. I was able to be present for him. And then I was able to reflect out loud. Sounds like you've got some values that are really important to you, and you want to protect the forests and rivers and habitat, and the thing that this event was about is really concerning to you. And he's like, yeah, and the problem with you is that you want to pave everything. And then at one point, you know, in retrospect, I might have been able to stay with him in empathy a little more, but I ended up going to honesty, and I said, feeling really confused right now because did you not hear me speak and hear what I said? Because it didn't, what he was saying and what I had said didn't match. And so we did a little back and forth, and he ended up walking away. But going down to here, being connected with myself, it's like I could have chosen to follow him. I could have chosen to pursue the conversation. I could have chosen, but I chose not to. And it was out of my connection with myself that I made that choice. So from here, you can make these different choices. However, I want to point one thing out. This is a limiting factor or a supportive factor to these other two. And I'll explain that. If I'm not connected to what's happening inside me, how honest can I be with you? I can be honest and say, feeling disconnected from myself. Like maybe that much, right? If I'm that self-aware. So or if I have a storm happening inside me and I'm just flooded with emotions, again, it's going to limit. And the same with how present I am. If I've got all this stuff happening inside me, it limits how totally present I can be with the other person. So the more self-connected I am, the more powerful these other two sides become as well. So that goes partially toward answering your question. Okay, I'm going to put one more thing up here. Let me look at my notes real quick. Okay, well, I was hoping to get to more practice, and it's such a short intro. I want to share this one piece. It's really valuable. And then get feedback and see where we're at that point. I know that if we go a little over, it won't hurt. Yeah, well, I have this value around like keeping agreements, and we have this agreement, and then the process it would take to renegotiate the time, and yeah, but thank you. I'm hearing you're stoked. Yeah, and I love longer intros. The minimum I like to do is 6 hours. Like, just ideally. Because people really get the power of this stuff when they put it into practice. That's really when we get a sense of how it works more. So here we have two people. How I am and what I would like, how you are and what you'd like, and then down here is some solution or strategy. The tendency, if there's a disconnect between us, is that we jump to fix it. Anybody familiar with this? We jump to a solution, usually. And we'll even bypass the connection because we just jump to fix it. I see it in so many contexts. Parents with kids, oh, don't worry, honey, Daddy will buy you a new one. Or in the workplace, like, fine, boss, I'll take on that extra project. I was talking with someone not that long ago who's part of a large IT department. And what happens when the higher-ups just dictate something, they just say, okay, we're going to make these changes, everybody has to deal. And when they don't take the time to get the buy-in from other people, what happens? Resentment, foot dragging, subtle sabotage, all those things. And that's much more costly to an organization than if they take the time here. And the same thing in intimate relationships. If we take the time here to get connected first, and now we understand each other, in other words, we've surfaced the needs, then our strategies and solutions are going to be much more durable. There's going to be buy-in from everybody because we took the time to surface all the needs and make sure that the strategies cover all the needs. I call this go slow to go fast. Because it might take a little time up front, but then guess what? You don't have to do all the cleanup. It can take 10 times as long because you rushed a decision unilaterally. So take a little time up front, and then things tend to flow a lot more smoothly. So let's say that I get home tonight, and I worked all last weekend, it's been a long week, it's been a long day, and I get home, and hypothetical situation, but let's say that I get home and my partner is kind of dressed up a little bit more than usual, and she says, surprise, I got a babysitter, let's go out to dinner and watch a movie. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm so tired. I just want to lay on the couch for 2 hours and have like nobody talk to me. So on the surface, there's a potential conflict happening. And she could walk away with the interpretation like, oh, my needs don't matter to him. And I could be like, man, she's so bossy, and like, she doesn't even get down tired, and like that. And the whole thing, we just get farther apart. But let's say that we take the time to peel the layers of the onion and find out, so why do you want to go out to dinner and see a movie? Like, how would that meet your needs? Like, what would that do for you? And it turns out it's like fun and connection and downtime. It's like, okay, I can get that. I have those needs too. That might not be what's up for me right now. Maybe downtime, but not fun and the other ones. But I can relate because I have those too. And she gets curious too. She's like, what's that about laying on the couch for 2 hours? Like, what's behind that? And we peel the layers of the onion. It's like, oh, self-nurturing. It's really about downtime and recovering from a long work week. Now that we're connected, now the problem-solving process becomes collaborative. What strategies could we come up with that could meet both the needs? So she might suggest something like, what if we send the babysitter out with the kids and we get takeout and watch a movie at home? Would that work for you? Or, I realize, oh, you know what? I've got all day tomorrow off. And I have a genuine shift. I'm not giving in, I'm not giving up. Just a genuine shift, like a change of heart. You know what? Let's go out to dinner and see a movie. Now that sounds fun because I can just chill out all day tomorrow. So whatever strategy we come up with, for any set of needs, there could be 100 strategies, or 1,000, or 10,000. But we need to get clear what the needs are first. We create connection, then the problem-solving process becomes collaborative, and we can find solutions that really meet all the needs. I'll give you one more example of this distinction between needs and strategies, because it's so key. And if you want to avoid conflicts, say in your own life, or help other people avoid conflicts, having this differentiation is going to be really useful. And I'll just give you an example that I like. It's convenient, and for me it's very clear. I have a need for safety and protection. We all have that need. My strategy when I get home might be I go out and I get to know all my neighbors. And once I've gotten to know all my neighbors, that strategy contributes to my need for safety and protection. Another one of my neighbors, the way they handle that need for safety and protection is they triple bolt their door and they close all their blinds and they hide under their covers. That's their strategy that contributes to their need for safety and protection. Another one of my neighbors, same need, safety and protection, but they go out and they buy a couple of assault rifles. Same need, safety and protection, just totally different strategies. Conflicts happen at the level of strategy, not at the level of needs, because we all have the same needs. So if we can, now this is really key, and I want this to sink in as much as it can. If we can let go of our strategy, the way we thought our needs had to be met, and create connection just on the needs, we're more likely for our needs to get met, even if it looked differently than how we originally thought. As a practitioner of nonviolent communication, I'll never let go of my needs. I won't give up my needs. In fact, I will fiercely protect my needs. But I'm willing to be totally flexible on strategy. I'm willing to let go of any particular way I thought it needed to look. I'm open to be looking some way I never even imagined, as long as the needs are met. And it's more fun when we can create a win-win. If I'm living in this world of who's right and who's wrong and who wins and who loses, it's not as fun for me anymore. It's kind of a drag. But when we can create win-wins, that's so much more fun. Questions, comments so far?
You mentioned a story in the beginning about in front of the utility group, and a guy yelled at you. What did he say? You didn't finish that.
Well, I gave him empathy. So he was, where are you? Here you are. I didn't come to get a Punch and Judy show. I didn't come here to be treated like a 4-year-old. So first I took it in, right? I was like translating, and I was trying to get it. And I thought, sounds like you really want to be treated in a way that recognizes your intelligence, and that, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I really wanted to be treated like an adult and with respect and consideration. Yeah! Like that, and I just hung in there with him. And eventually, his energy totally softened, and he like was helping us like carry the whiteboard out. It was like super friendly after that, because I just demonstrated like I was willing to get it. I was willing to be like, oh, I get what that would be like. Yeah, and then I was also able to clarify. You know, the intention of them is to be as metaphors and to clarify, you know, certain elements, but I get that they didn't work for you. So yeah, that's basically what happened. I was willing to hear his needs.
So you had to kind of let go of how his strategy made you feel. Like if he's yelling in your face, you just kind of had to tune into his needs and then just kind of let go.
I wasn't triggered. I wasn't triggered.
Okay.
If I had been triggered, I would have done what I did in the other one where I wanted to punch somebody, where I would have turned my attention inward, given myself self-empathy. So that might have sounded something like the top level might have been like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? Because that's what happens for us, right? And then we start to translate, like, okay, I'm feeling some irritation because I'm really wanting some understanding about these tools that I'm bringing to the workshop. And then, boy, I really value when people are open to learning something new and they don't get hung up on details. So what would that be like? Openness to learning or humility, something around there maybe might have been valuable for me. If I'd gotten triggered by him yelling at me, oh boy, I really value kindness a little more. So I start with my judgment that came up. Marshall used to say, enjoy the jackal show. Start with the judgment. I enjoy the jackal show, and then I can translate into the needs. There's a story I tell a lot about when I was putting gas in my car, and somebody pulled in to park, and they threw a lit cigarette in the direction of the gas pumps. And I thought I had to dive and cover, right? And nothing happened. And then I noticed that I was like, what a fucking idiot. And then I noticed my heart was pounding really fast, and my palms were sweaty, and I thought, oh, I'm scared. And have a need for safety, and the judgment was still there, and I thought, yeah, I'm feeling super irritated because I value self-awareness and self-responsibility. So that's all it took was for me to translate my judgments into feelings and needs, and then I went and gave the guy feedback. And this is a big guy. I was risking getting my butt kicked or worse. People get shot for less. But I went into the convenience store, and he's right there at the front of the line, and I said, excuse me, I feel a little nervous saying this, but when I saw you throw your cigarette in the direction of the gas pumps, I felt super nervous because I really value my safety. Right then, a woman who was with him, who was behind him in the line, she popped her head out from behind him in the line. She goes, what's he saying to you? And then he turned to her and he goes, no, it's all right. He's right. And then he turns to me and he goes, thank you.
Cool.
And I'll tell you 3 things that really helped that go the way it went. First thing was, I transformed the judgment that I had. Like, I enjoyed the jackal show. What a fucking idiot. And then I allowed myself to translate it into, oh, this is what's happening. Like, I'm afraid, I have a need for safety, I feel irritated because I really value self-responsibility and self-awareness. If I hadn't translated the judgment and had gone to give him feedback with that energy, I would have said something like, what's your problem? Are you stupid? You know, I would have done something like that and not created the connection that was there to be had. Second thing that really worked is I started the conversation with, excuse me, I feel a little nervous saying this, but why do you think that might have helped?
Because it puts you in a position of self-awareness, first of all, that you're not focused on the other person and their behavior necessarily. And also kind of puts you at a vulnerable position.
Yeah.
And lets the other person know you're not coming from a power stance.
Yeah. In NVC, vulnerable doesn't mean weak. Vulnerable means like transparent, you know, real. And that's exactly part of it. When you're vulnerable in that way, it invites the other person's natural compassion.
Yes.
And the other thing is that unexpressed emotions can come across as aggression, especially nervousness and fear. Because when I'm afraid, I'm really intense. It's so easy to read it as aggression. So by saying, excuse me, I feel a little nervous, yes, I made myself vulnerable, but it just took the edge off the conversation right there. So that was the next thing. The other thing is I kept my observation really clean. I said, when you threw your cigarette in the direction of the gas pumps. I didn't say when you stupidly threw your cigarette, when you mindlessly threw your cigarette. I had all those judgments, but I just didn't think they'd serve. So those were some things that contributed in that interaction. And that was just one of those spontaneous things that happens. in life. And so that's where I would love everybody here to have like their black belt in nonviolent communication, because stuff does happen out of the blue that then we need to, if we can, that's when we rely on our skills. I'm trying to think, there's a quote from Bruce Lee that's not coming to mind, but it has to do with, the paraphrase would be something like, you know, what you fall back onto isn't your desire or, but you're falling back on your skills, like that you've practiced over time. I'm interested in just getting a little feedback from everybody. I didn't even go into the actual model because there are some specific tools. I'll give you, I'll lay this out real quick, and then I'd love to hear from everyone. But the actual model that we practice in a workshop setting has two parts that we talked about: honesty and empathy. And we've got these 4 components. Observation, when I notice you throw your cigarette butt in the direction of the gas pumps. Feeling, I felt scared, or I felt really nervous because I have an E. In that moment, my request was really for him to take it in, and that came when he turned to her and said, no, it's okay, he's right, and then thank you. I didn't actually have to verbalize this, it was already meant. So this is the NVC model. It has these 2 halves, and under each half we have these 4 components. And there's some specific syntax we practice in longer workshops. But the thing that's going to confuse you is when I tell you that this is not NVC. And it's not. And sometimes when I first realized that was confusing to me. But the reason that this is not NVC is because what NVC is, it's the consciousness and the intentionality that I bring to my interactions. My intention is to create a high quality of connection, and I'm willing to work toward a win-win outcome. It's NVC. I don't care what words you use. I don't care if you even know this stuff or not. It's that consciousness. If my intention is to get my way or manipulate a specific outcome, I can use words that sound like observation, feeling, need, request, but then it's not NVC at all. It becomes a subtle form of manipulating others. So it's that consciousness of creating a high quality of connection. So I hope that you got something valuable tonight. I hope that you're able to join either a study group that Joshua or Kara lead, or some of the other people on the team lead. We also have a practice group in town, but probably we'll have more over time. So the study group is people going through the book chapter by chapter, and there's a companion workbook that has like exercises and questions and stuff like that. A practice group is more where we're practicing the skills. Having a tool is one thing, being skillful with a tool is entirely another thing. And then there's a skill building intensive that I'm planning to do start late March. And that's typically 7 sessions. And so just keep an eye out for that. I just did one, and I'm going to do another one in the spring. Yeah.
Where is the practice group, or what's the...
Do you want to speak to that?
Well, and I was going to say there's an email sign-up sheet up here. It does say the identity movement on top, but we're going to be linking this to NVC Whatcom. And so all of the practice groups, study groups, all of those things we'll be sending out emails for.
Practice group, just to give some logistics of it, is recommended for those that have made their way through the book, so that you kind of have that tool, and then you get together in a very intimate setting and are able to practice that tool. So we invite you to make your way through either reading the book on your own or join the 14-week study group, just so you can have that in your pocket.
And right now the current study group that at least that I'm facilitating is we're on week 9. So at the end of the 14 weeks, we'll be starting another one. So I'll be sending out information on that if anyone wants to really make sure that you get a spot. There'll always be a spot. Feel free to talk to me, or again, just put the email down and we'll let you know.
And there's a website, right, for NVC Whatcom, is that it?
.com.
NVCWhatcom.com.
And that has a calendar with the practice and the study groups and everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is for the workshop coming up on NVC and relationship. That's the URL where you can register. There's flyers up here if anybody wants one. I can also pass some out. Does anybody know right now you want a flyer?
And one more thing that we
Just pass a
have
few back.
is NVC Social on the 4th Tuesday of each month, where we just get together and there's NVC games that we play. Vulnerabilities. Vulnerability is sexy is one game that we play. We play some role playing. We do have some other NVC cards, and we're just trying to have a good time.
And that's at Rook and Rogue?
Yeah.
What time?
6 to 8.
You can find NVC Welcome on Facebook too. The social is really, it's not a workshop. It's just hanging out with each other and playing games. It's pretty fun.
And is that, that's at the same place each time, or?
Yeah, for now.
Oh, Rook and Rogue.
Rook and Rogue, yeah, that's the spot, which is on, I think it's Commercial Street. It's right near downtown.
Okay,
Yeah. Just up the block from the Mount Bakery. And this one is on NVC and relationship. Coming up in 2 weeks. And this will be 10 to 5. Yeah.
Dawn mentioned that you may, and I might be misquoting her, have a class or something for parents.
We have an all-day Saturday for parents in September. I don't have the date off my head, but I have my laptop. I could look it up if you want the date now. Yeah? Okay. I can do that. Yeah, totally. And if you get on the list, you'll find out about it for sure. Any feedback? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so I was having a rough couple of days and I wasn't even sure I was going to make it here tonight. But I'm really happy that I showed up and I'm feeling extremely fulfilled and satisfied because my need for inspiration and connection and regrounding has been met.
Yay!
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tori. I'm so glad I contributed to your needs.
And also,
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Just because it made me really think about what I would do. Have you ever had a guest demand you make dinner?
I haven't. but I have had lots of other people demand things of me over time, and I've gotten a little more skillful at how to handle it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for ending. Yeah, come on.